are about to correct our multiplication and division review sheet. All right, it looks like everyone in class has it out and ready to correct. So, for numbers 1 through 6, you were given 10 to the power of something, or 10 with an exponent, and you were supposed to write what number that was the same as. So for number 1, 10 to the 0 power, that's the same as 1, or nothing at all. So if you put no number at all, that would also work for number 1. Number 2, 10 to the first power, that's the same as just 10. Number 3, 10 to the second power, that's the same as 100, because remember that 2 tells us how many zeros there are. And in the number 100, there are 2 zeros. For number 4, 10 to the third power then would mean 1,000. 1,000 has 3 zeros. Number 5, 10 to the fourth power, that is the same as 10,000, or 4 zeros. And then number 6, 10 to the fifth power, that is the same as 100,000, which has 5 zeros. Other questions on 1 through 6? Okay. So then what we did for number 7 and 8 was you were given a number and you were asked to multiply by a power of 10, either with or without exponents. So for number 7, you were given 35, and then you multiplied it by 1, which would get you 35, by 10, which would get you 350, by 100, which would get you 3,500, by 1,000, which would get you 35,000, and then by 10,000, which would get you 350,000. For number 8, it was similar but a little different because you were given 8, but then you were asked to multiply it by 10 to the power of something, or 10 with an exponent. So 8 times 10 to the 0 power, if you remember from up here, that's the same as multiplying by 1 or nothing at all. So that would be 8. The second one, 8 times 10 to the first power, that's the same as 8 times 10, or 80. 8 times 10 to the second power, that is the same as 8 times 100, or 800. 8 times 10 to the third power, which is the same as 8 times 1,000, which would get you 8,000. And 8 times 10 to the fourth power, which is the same as 8 times 10,000, which would get you 80,000. Are there questions on number 7 or 8? Richie?
It's actually not a question to 7 and 8, but for the first one,
yeah.
So I know it was nothing at all, so I put a 0. Is that like nothing at all?
It's not the same as 0, because when we multiply by 0, it's always going to be 0, right? But if we multiply by 10 to the 0 power, it's basically like there's no 10 there. There's nothing there. So when multiplying, think of it as 1. Okay? That works.
And also,
yep.
Are we supposed to write the right answer?
Yes. Yep. What? You can do it after review. All right. How do we feel on numbers 1 through 8? How do we feel? Show me on your hand, 1 through 5. How did you feel on these first 8 problems of your review sheet? Okay. Awesome. Okay, go ahead, put your hands down. Okay, then we had 2 problems where we multiplied. Now I showed my work here so that you guys could see it. For number 9, you were asked to multiply 9,226 times 8. Now when we multiply that, we end up with 25,808. And so you can see my work over here. So if you didn't get the same answer as me, check your work with my work and see if you did your multiplying correctly. Any questions on number 9? Okay. Then for number 10, you were asked to multiply 409 times 26. That should have gotten you 10,634. Now again, if you didn't get the same answer as me, you should be checking your work with mine. The 2 partial products I got before I added them for the final answer were 2,454 and 8,180. So if you didn't get the same answer, you should be checking your work with mine to see where your silly mistake was. Are there questions on number 10? Okay, how do we feel about number 9 and 10? Show me on your hands. How do we feel about those 2? How do we feel? Philip, how'd you feel? Okay. Jack, how did you feel? Eosius, how did you feel? Okay. Okay. All right. Then we had finding quotients. So I know 13 is off to the side. We'll do 11 and 12 first, then I'll scoot it over for 13. So for number 11, they asked you to divide 744 by 6. So when we do that, we should wind up with 124 as our answer. So the steps to get there, we did 7 minus 6, ended up with 1, brought down our 4 for 14. 6 goes into 14 2 times, so then we would subtract 12 from 14, wind up with 2, bring down that last 4 for 24. 6 evenly goes into 24 4 times, so then 6 minus 24 gets us 0, and we wind up with 124 as our final answer. Then for number 12, you were asked to divide 624 by 13. You should have wound up with 48 as your final answer, your total. To get there, we asked how many times does 13 go into 62? It goes in 4 times, and 13 times 4 is 52. So 62 minus 52 gets us 10. Then we would bring down the 4 for 104. Well, 13 goes into 104 evenly 8 times. So we put the 8 up top, and then we subtracted the 104 to get 0, and 48 as our answer. Are there questions on number 11 or 12? Did anyone find a silly mistake on 11 or 12? Yeah? Does seeing my work help see what you did?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so then number 13, you were asked to divide 3,565 by 23. You should have wound up with 155 as your answer, and this is how. 23 can't go into 3, but it can go into 35. 23 goes into 35 once, so we put the 1 up top. Then we'd subtract 23. 35 minus 23 gets us 12. Then we bring down our 6 for 126. So then we ask, how many times does 23 go into 126? Well, it goes in 5 times. And 23 times 5 is 115. So we would subtract 115 from 126. That would get us 11. We'd bring down that 5 for 115. Well, we know 13 goes into 115 5 times equally. So then we would subtract the 115 and end up with 0. For 155 is our final total. Did anyone find a silly mistake on number 13? Anyone find a silly mistake on number 13? Yeah? Okay. All right, so Addie, you just came in. Here's number 13 was 155. Here's 11 and 12 too. So if you just came in, go ahead and correct 11, 12, and 13. So 124, 48, and 155. Michael, don't be tipping your desk, dude. Oh, 9 and 10, right here. Jack P. All right, are we ready to flip to the second side? All right, so then for our second side, we had some word problems. So for number 14, it said, one toolkit at the hardware store costs $12. If the store earned $744, how many toolkits did they sell? And you're supposed to show your work. That means you are doing your work on the piece of paper so that I can see it. You should have said they ended up selling 62 toolkits. And here's my work. So you would have taken $744 and divided it by 12, because that's the cost of one toolkit. So if we take it, 744, and we're dividing by 12, 12 can't go into 7, but it can go into 74. Jack P, turn around. It can go in 6 times. So 12 times 6 is 72. So we would subtract 72. 74 minus 72 gets us 2. Bring down that 4 for 24. 12 goes into 24 2 times, so we put 2 up top. 12 times 2 is 24. We subtract, end up with 0. So 62 toolkits should have been your answer. Addie.
What is that first? It says 62 toolkits?
Yeah. Yep. 62 toolkits. Okay. Then we had number 15 and 16, which we were supposed to use this table to help us for 15 and 16. So a bakery, we have the bakery items up top, cookie, cupcake, cake, brownie, and pie, and then the amount that was sold of each of those on the bottom. So for number 15, it said the bakery earned $864 from selling cakes. How much did each cake cost? So to find that answer, we would have to take the $864 and divide it by the amount of cakes that were sold, 72. So 864 divided by 72, you should have gotten 12. So each cake costs $12. And again, if you got a different answer, be looking at my work with your work. See where maybe you made that silly mistake. Did you accidentally look at cookies instead of cupcakes? Did you have a subtracting error? Jack P, turn around. I don't want to have to tell you again. Thank you. How have we felt so far on 14 and 15? Show me on your hand. 1 through 5. How do we feel on 14 and 15? 14 and 15. Okay. All right. And then we had number 16. So number 16 said, if each brownie costs $8, how much money did the store make from selling brownies? Show your work. So each brownie costs $8. Then we'd look, well, they sold 435 brownies. So we would need to take 435 and multiply it by 8. And when we do that, you should have gotten 3,480. So they made $3,480. Yeah, yep. As long as you have that dollar sign. Yes, Addie. Yes. Jack L. Ah, yep. That happens sometimes. So when it comes to the word problems, the first thing you always want to be figuring out is, am I multiplying or am I dividing? Because I know I used to do that too. So I'm glad you said that, because obviously a few people in here did the same thing, Jack. Yes, Addie.
I did. I tried to visualize left and right like that. It was
so if that happens, what I would recommend you guys do is, when, especially with word problems, when you get your answer, look back at the question they're asking. So each brownie costs $8. How much money did the store make from selling brownies? Well, you know they sold 435. If we were dividing, we would have wound up with a number less than 435, which that wouldn't make sense, right, if you go back and look at the question. So with word problems, once you get your answer, it can be helpful to look back at the question and think, does my answer make sense? And if the answer is no, then look back at it and maybe you need to do a different operation, like multiplying instead of dividing. Mackenzie.
Yeah, I did dividing, and then I realized that most people would not normally remainders in these types of questions, and also the answer didn't make really that much sense. And then I did multiplication and multiplication.
Yep, so you just want to be, so I always tell you guys with word problems, read the directions carefully, read it carefully, and take your time. Because when we rush or if we skim, that's when I used to make mistakes too. How do we feel? I mean, even if you know you did division instead of multiplication, now that you know it was multiplication, how do you feel about number 16? Yeah, okay. Awesome. All right, hands down. Does everyone have at least one kind of problem on this worksheet that you feel like you could practice before our test tomorrow? I'm seeing a lot of head nodding. So what that means, you guys, if you wanted to, tonight, you can take your review sheet home, because I've already checked it. I know who had it. And if you don't have it today, you need to bring it tomorrow so that I can give you partial points. But you can go home and you can make some more problems for yourself that are similar to the ones that maybe you made silly mistakes on. So if it was dividing, you can divide. You can go on Google and look up division worksheet, and you can get a worksheet of just division problems, or multiplication worksheet, and it's yeah, exactly. You can do our Jeopardy review game in Google Classroom. Jack L. We don't have time today. I wish we did. But what we can do is we will be able to start correcting our EPB like now before Mass, so then we can kind of bump up our schedule. Maybe you have extra time, okay? Are there, before we move on, are there questions on the review sheet? Are you guys feeling prepared for tomorrow's test? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and open up to EPB. It was page 113, wasn't it? Okay, we're going to correct that. Go ahead.